Well, we are right at 9:30. Looks like we definitely have a quorum, and I believe we have all committee members present that will be present. So at this point, as vice chair, I will go ahead and call together and call the virtual building code structure board meeting of August 4th. The time now is 9:30, and we will call the meeting in motion here. So with that, Melissa, if I could please ask you to call roll for committee members.
Andrew Dykman. I see Andrew's here. We didn't hear you, Andrew.
I'm not able to hear your audio, Andrew, but I can definitely see it.
Yeah.
Well, Mark is here. Thank you. Stephen Forster.
Here.
Brenda Hartzog.
Here.
Gary Hakenen.
Here.
Randy Samuelson.
Here. Excuse me.
Thank you. Cale Zuslog.
Here.
Vice Chair Eric Schmidt.
Here.
And Chair Eric Sandoval is excused. We have a quorum, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. At this point, we'll look to the next item is approval of the agenda and order of business. So I'll ask if any committee members have any changes to the agenda. Okay, hearing none. Okay, so as vice chair, I'll rule that the agenda and order of business is approved. Next item is approval of board draft meeting minutes of June 30th, 2021. Let me open it up to committee members and to see if there is any amendments that you would like to ask for on the meeting minutes. Okay, I see some no's. Okay, no's. Okay. Last call. Any proposed changes to the meeting minutes of June 30th, 2021? All right. So be it. Again, as vice chair, I will rule that the draft minutes of June 30th, 2021 are final. Okay, just in terms of housekeeping, just want to announce the date of. Are you able to mute?
Yes.
Thank you. I think Brenda. Brenda, did you have comments on the meeting minutes, or are you okay?
I'm okay. Sorry.
Brenda, I see you on two screens. I'm not sure if you might have feedback on your own. I'm not sure if you have a cell phone as well. I assume everybody else is hearing that. Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, so you're muted now. Okay. So again, Brenda, seeing you on two screens on the call, just want to make sure you're okay with the meeting minutes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So ruled the meeting minutes are final, and in terms of the next housekeeping thing is just the date of our next scheduled meeting is on November 3rd of this year. Wow, hard to believe. Year goes by fast. So November 3rd, 2021 is the date of our next meeting. Okay. Next up is public comment. So I will ask BCD staff, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Tyler Glaze, Policy Analyst for the division, and no, I do not believe we have any public comment for today. Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Tyler. All right. Let's go ahead and we're going to move into the next agenda item, which is reports. We have two reports this morning. One is a program update, and the second is a legislative update. So at this point in time, I will ask BCD staff, Mr. Rocco, to come forward. And Tony, any updates from a program standpoint?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Tony Rocco with the division. Not much of a program update for the board today as we met recently. And the big update here is coming from our senior policy advisor, Julia Heyer, and she's next on your agenda. But as always, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the program from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. Committee members, is there any questions that you have of Mr. Rocco? All right, Tony, it looks like you're off the hook today. So thanks very much. Appreciate all your continued great work. All right, at this point in time, we will move to the legislative update. We have Julia here, our Senior Policy Advisor, Legislative and Rules Coordinator. So Julia, good morning. And if you'd like to go ahead and go over a legislative update, appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you. And good morning, Vice Chair Schmidt and members of the board. For the record, Julia Heyer, Senior Policy Advisor with the Building Codes Division. I am giving a legislative update today. Oregon's regular 2021 legislative session began back in January of 2021. It came to an end on June 26th. There were a lot of bills this session affecting the Building Codes Division. The purpose of this update is to give a high-level overview of those bills we thought would be most interest to this board. In your packet, you will find a copy of the bills we're discussing today. There's two sections. The first section outlines the bills that we thought would be of highest interest to this board. The second section I will not go through. There's 10 bills in there. Those are affecting the division, but not directly relating to the Building Code Structures Board. But if anybody has any questions on any of the bills, we welcome those. So getting into the update here. The first bill on the list is Senate Bill 866. This is program delegation. This corrects issues identified by the Oregon Department of Justice relating to program delegation. It permits a municipality or the Department of, or DCBS to contract with a person to administer and enforce building inspection programs and to act as a building official. The bill further specifies conditions under which a municipality may procure services from a contract building official, and it takes effect on January 1 of next year. We are implementing this bill through rulemaking, training, enforcement, and when necessary, assumption of a building inspection program. We are preparing a public notice about a rulemaking advisory committee meeting taking place at the end of this month, and have invited members of the last rulemaking advisory committee meeting relating to program delegation to that, and we'll open the invitation to others if they are interested in joining. Once the bill is signed into law, we're going to, or actually the bill has recently been signed into law, so we've got that RAC all scheduled. We're also developing a training program. There's a qualified employee that is created within the bill to help with the discretionary decisions, and there's training that's required for them. So that training program's development is underway. There's a basic class and then more advanced training that has to take place within 180 days. The next bill to discuss is 2415. I see this bill in two parts. The first is Section 1, which requires us to adopt and establish minimum standards and statewide consistency in electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. That part of the bill is taking effect at the end of September. It's 91 days following adjournment sine die, which is September 25. And we will be implementing this through a rulemaking advisory committee meeting. We're looking at doing that after the summer construction season comes to an end, which is coming up here, so coming this fall. And we will expect to have the rules implemented once we get sufficient input from that rulemaking advisory committee. The second part of the bill is Sections 2 and 3. Those don't become operative until January 1 of 2025. The new law requires municipalities that administer and enforce building inspection programs to use the department's electronic system for access to building codes information, or to use a system that's equivalent to our system. And it requires municipalities that administer and enforce building inspection programs to meet minimum standards that the department adopts, regardless of whether they use the equivalent system. So we, again, intend to utilize the RAC that we are developing for the first part of the bill to help us explore some terminology in the bill. Talks about electronic field inspections and other terminology that could be further detailed in rules. And then we also intend to look at pilot programs to iron out details of the system. We're going to have meetings taking place with contractors and building officials to seek additional ideas. The goal is to iron out the rules by 2023, and that would allow municipalities time to create their own system with that implementation date or operative date of January 1 of 2025. Next bill here is 2605, which is tsunami and seismic hazards. The bill imposes tsunami design standards for certain buildings and other structures. It requires that sites for new structures be evaluated for vulnerability to seismic geologic hazards if structures are major hazards or are designated as having specific tsunami risk for design. Also requires a developer of a building designated as having a specified tsunami risk for design to request a determination, scientific evidence, and recommendations from the State Department of Geology and Mineral Industries. And it requires that department to report annually regarding requests, determinations, and suggestions. So we're looking at adjusting the Oregon Structural Specialty Code through rulemaking and through this board. January 1, 2022 is the stated effective date of that bill. Next bill here is Senate Bill 762, which is wildfire bill. It's an extensive wildfire bill. I'm not going to go through every portion of it, just the parts. I'm going to highlight parts that are more directly relating to the Building Codes Division. State Board of Forestry is going to establish criteria for developing and maintaining a statewide map of wildfire risk, and that will play into the Building Codes Division here that you'll see in a moment. They're looking at classes of extreme, high, moderate, low, and no risk for wildfire, and populating that into an Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer that will be made publicly and electronically available. Oregon State University is going to be consulted during this development of the map, and they will maintain the map. And then in developing the wildfire risk classes, there's opportunity for public input and an appeals process for risk assignment. That map has to be completed by June 30th of 2022. And the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer is declared the official wildfire planning and risk classification mapping tool for the state. Looking at DCBS in the Building Codes Division, it requires the adoption of certain building code standards for extreme and high risk wildfire risk classes in the wildland urban interface that are defined within Section 7 of the bill. We need to adopt wildfire hazard mitigation building code standards that apply to new dwellings and the accessory structures of dwellings as described in R327 of the 2021 ORSC. We need to have those actions taken place by October 1 of 2022, the standards not becoming operative before April 1 of 2023, and the standards being incorporated in any subsequent updates to the ORSC. Also requires amendment to R327 of the ORSC to include standards for additions to existing dwellings and accessory structures and for the replacement of existing exterior elements covered in the current R327. Again, with those dates, it's October 1 of 2022, operative, not becoming operative before April 1 of 2023, and incorporating updates into the ORSC. And then not more than 2 years after these standards are adopted, then we need to update the section R327 of ORSC to accomplish certain requirements in the bill. We also need to develop and maintain an interactive mapping tool that displays at the property level wildfire hazard mitigation standards covered in section R327 of the ORSC. The tool has to be designed to support future inclusion of snow load, seismic, and wind building code standards at the property level. And the tool has to be developed not more than 60 days after the statewide map that we just talked about is developed. The OSU is, again, part of this collaboration, and they will also be assisting with, or they can be used to assist in the development and maintenance of the tool. We can enter into agreements with them. We need to ensure that the tool is displayed in an electronic format and available to the public at no charge, and periodically updated when relevant building codes are updated. And then the final big component for Building Codes Division within 762 is that it requires that our agency provide 15% of the time of a full-time equivalent employee to cooperatively staff the Wildfire Programs Advisory Council, which is established under this bill. And that would include attending meetings, assisting with drafting of reports, supporting the work of the State Wildfire Program Director. So this bill took effect on passage, And we are working on rulemaking and code work that will likely be in full swing by next summer, updating the codes with that October 1 date in mind and a 6-month phase-in, at least a 6-month phase-in to April 1 of 2023. And that 2-year timeframe, we need to update the R327, so that's around October of 2024, in accordance with the requirements of the bill. And then we're also looking at maintaining that interactive mapping tool, collaborating with OSU, and then developing or participating in the Wildfire Programs Advisory Council. The next bill on the list is 5006. It's often referred to as the Christmas tree bill. It's, again, a very extensive bill, several hundred sections here involved in it. So again, I'm just going to highlight the parts of the bill that either involve the Building Codes Division or affect our customers more directly. So Section 194 gives some money to building and planning departments. Section 263 is what heavily involves us. It gives a DCBS a grant for fire hardening, for a fire hardening grant program. And so for the biennium beginning July 1 of 2021, out of the general fund, we get just over $10 million for a residential and commercial fire hardening grant program. For that part of the bill, we're working to create the grant program and conducting rulemaking and are underway in discussions about the best way to set that up. Section 278 includes money for rebuilding. Next bill here is House Bill 2180. Electrical service capacity for parking spaces. It requires us to amend the state building code to require that new construction of certain buildings include provisions for electrical service capacity for a specified percentage of parking spaces. It allows a municipality to adopt a local percentage of parking space requirements higher than the state building code requirements, and requires us to make those amendments effective July 1 of 2022. So we're working on rulemaking in coordination with the Electrical and Elevator Board with that July 1 date in mind. Then we've got House Bill 2560, remote meetings and testimony. This requires all governing bodies of a public body, to the extent reasonably possible, to make all meetings accessible remotely to members of the general public through technological means, and to provide an opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony when that type of testimony is allowed in person. Imposes these requirements on some hearings, taking effect at the first of the year. This means that we're going to continue to keep our meetings accessible remotely, and will allow those remote oral and written testimony opportunities in all situations where that testimony is allowed in person. And then the final bill here is House Bill 2992, compensation to board members. This one may not have yet been signed into law. When I checked a couple days ago, the governor has until August 6th to sign them, or if not, they get adopted at that time. But this bill is modifying the amount of compensation paid to members of state boards and commissions. It also requires state boards and commissions to pay compensation and expenses to certain members with an adjusted gross income below a certain threshold. And it provides that members may decline to accept compensation or reimbursement. This bill will take effect at the end of September, and we'll be in communication with all the board members about this new law with additional details. So that was a lot of information. I know it was a very busy session, but I am happy to answer any questions. And otherwise, I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. And yes, definitely a lot of information, but I think it's indicative of how much work actually goes in to the full legislative session. So thank you for all your work with that. Committee members, questions for Julia on anything that she's presented? Okay. Yeah, I do want to say I appreciate the way you have formatted this and brought it forward. It's very concise. I was actually thinking for myself, I'm like, I think I'm going to use this. This is good. This will help me help educate our legislative body and that kind of stuff. So, so our city council and stuff. So thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Again, last chance. Any questions or comments from committee members related to this information? Does someone have a question? Okay, just double checking there. Okay, Julia, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, All right, so we don't have anything under communications or appeals on the agenda. And so next up is under unfinished business is the board review and approval of committee membership for the 2022 Oregon Structural Specialty Code adoption process. And ultimately this will require a motion. And if I could, I'll call upon Tyler, please, to go ahead and present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, members of the board, Tyler Glaze, Policy Analyst for the division. If you will take a look on your agenda at agenda item number 6, it is a memorandum discussing this issue. If you'll recall, at the June 30th meeting, the board members discussed approving a code review committee for the 2022 OSSC. The division issued a solicitation for individuals interested in participating in that code review committee on July 1st. And the solicitation closed on July 22nd of this year. A subcommittee of the board appointed during that June 30th meeting discussed the individuals who requested to participate in the committee, and their recommendations were posted on the division website on August 4th and are also attached just below this agenda item as agenda item 6A. Prior to the August 4th board meeting, the list of individuals recommended by the Building Code Structure Board to participate are available on that link if you care to use that instead of your agenda. And it was included as a late submission to the package. So if the board would please discuss these issues, and this will, as the chair said, require a motion to approve board members or modify them as the board sees fit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. So let me go ahead and open it up to committee members now. Any discussion on this item? If no discussion, certainly would entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the names as listed for the Oregon Structural Specialty Code review committee.
Okay, so we have a motion by committee member Heikkinen to move to approve the subcommittee's recommendations for the members of the code review committee for the 2022 OSSC. Committee member Forster.
Yeah, I second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, that's the motion and a second from committee member Forster for the same motion to approve. Are there any discussion on the motion? Okay, absent that, I think what we'll do now is, I think we're going to do a roll call. Just want to make sure, Melissa, by procedure.
That's correct, Mr. Vice Chair.
So if you could please do a roll call for the motion to approve, again, the subcommittee's recommendations for the members for the 2022 OSSC Code Review Committee.
Andrew Dykman,
I approve.
Stephen Forster,
Approve.
Brenda Hartzog,
Brenda, looks like you're off. Go ahead, Brenda.
make sure that Brenda is unmuted. Brenda Hartzog.
I approve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Gary Heikkinen,
Yes.
Randy Samuelson,
I approve.
Kale Zuslag,
I approve.
Vice Chair Eric Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, committee members. Thank you, subcommittee members, for the work on the reviewing the applications. Appreciate, Tyler, your help from BCD staff to prepare this item. And want to thank all the committee members in advance for their time and effort on this code change committee. It's a lot of work that goes into it. Appreciate in advance all the work and the time that you're going to spend on this. And we look forward to seeing your recommendations come forward at a future meeting date. Committee Member Forrester, you're unmiked. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. Hey, I just wanted to give a big thank you to Tony Rocco, especially. Our subcommittee, we actually ended up putting a lot of work and a lot of hours and time into this. We had a lot of questions for BCD staff, and we did it all very quickly and after hours and weekend and all sorts of stuff. So I just want to give our appreciation to all the BCD staff, and particularly Tony, for really being available at a moment's notice on a lot of stuff. So that's all. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I second that. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Rocco. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. So that item is wrapped up. Again, thank you, code committee members in advance. Appreciate your time and efforts on this. Next item on the agenda is under new business. We have none listed. Wanted to just check in with committee members and see if there is anything that the committee members have under new business for today or a future meeting. Committee Member Heikkinen, and then Committee Member Forrester.
Yeah, Eric, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think we had discussed maybe suggesting that election of a new chair and vice chair maybe be on the agenda for the November meeting.
I'm sorry, for when?
For the November meeting.
Oh, November. Okay. Okay. And let's see, Committee Member Forrester, did you have another item as well?
No, same topic. Just wanted to express my support for that as well. So as most know, I know, speaking for myself, I've been on the board for 5 years. I think we've only had one election of officers. And we have a large board. I think it's healthy to give members an opportunity to lead and grow. I think it's good for the board to have diversity in leadership as well as succession planning. There's a number of us who will be terming out here before too long. And I think it's great timing before we get into the next code adoption cycle to do that. So I wholeheartedly endorse and think that would be really good for the board to have an election of officers, chair and co-chair, and see who's interested, and particularly try and prompt some of the first term members and others who have a strong passion to consider throwing their name in the hat.
Thank you very much. I guess let me ask staff, BCD staff, is that something that we could please schedule, I guess, for the next meeting in November as an agenda item?
Mr. Chair, this is Tyler Glaze, Policy Analyst for the division. If that's something the board would like to do, we will absolutely add that for the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and add that as an item for the November 3rd agenda. Any other kind of business under new business that committee members would like to discuss? Let me go ahead and mention just one thing. As I was preparing for the meeting today, I noticed under roll call, looking at each of our respective terms. So looks like if you are close to expiration or at that point, I think, Melissa, do you have any guidance, or does BCD staff have any guidance on that in terms of whether or not, like, what's the process to renew that term, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, this is Tyler Glaze, Policy Analyst for the division again, if I may. Board members can serve 2 4-year terms. The second term, they will need to apply. Administrator Cox, please correct me if that's incorrect, but I believe the second term they do have to apply. Okay. And there are no term limits, at least in those 4-year terms for vice chair and chair. So they can serve throughout that as vice chair and chair if that's what the board would like. But all board members can serve 2 4-year terms.
Okay, 2 4-year terms. And just make sure that those that are coming up on the end of their first term need to initiate on their own an application through the same, I think, governor's office or something like that. Is that for a renewal?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And I see, thank you, Alana. I see you nodding as well.
Yeah, and Debbie and Melissa can help make sure you get those reappointment forms that you need to submit to the governor's office for your second term, and can help coordinate getting those turned in for you.
Okay. Do you know how far in advance that you would need or you should submit that? Is that I'm guessing a few months or something?
Yeah, the time clock is really related to when Senate confirmation is scheduled, and those only happen generally quarterly during legislative days. So it's good to give lots of runway, because the governor's office comes up with their list generally 2 to 3 months before the next Senate confirmation opportunity. So, and the forms have changed. So since you first applied to be on the board, there are different questions. So you want to give yourself a little time to take a look at the form and spend some time filling that out.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no like set period, but if you know you're going for reappointment, your term's coming up, it's good to go ahead and get that taken care of.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, anything else under new business?
Can I ask a question around that same subject?
Please.
If we've filled out that paperwork months ago and it doesn't seem to be reflected on this list, should we be concerned and follow up, or just let it take its own course?
You should not be concerned. I know, Kayla, I've seen you're on the list for September legislative days. So, you know, during the long session, we did not see any board confirmations by the Senate for any of our building codes boards. There's a backlog of board membership applications right now, I think largely due to some of the natural resource boards and then those changes I was talking about in the application process. So I think they're doing a little bit of catch up. So we were always happy to confirm that you're in the hopper and you're on the list, but you shouldn't be worried if you haven't seen your name go through yet. September is the next time we'll see some Senate confirmations.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the question. Committee members inside. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, nothing else under new business. Is there, next item on the agenda is announcements. I don't see any listed on the agenda. Are there any announcements that need to be covered today? Okay, well with that, looks like we're gonna be able to give you some time back on your day. Is there any other business that come before the Building Code Structures Board today?
Would I be able to make a comment to the group?
BCD staff, is that, I believe.
Is it Don Wall?
But I don't know if we can take that offline or not. Staff?
Mr. Chair, if I may, that's at the discretion of the board. You can choose whether or not you care to address us, given that public comment's already passed.
Okay. Mr. Wall, I'm sorry, you wanted to provide a comment to the board about?
Yes, about the electronic process that you guys are going to be working on, making it consistent. I wanted to congratulate the BCD Oregon on the process they currently provide now for electronic submittals for the prefab structures process.
Okay.
And the idea that we can send in an electronic complete package for drawing plan submittal, and additionally that we get an electronic confirmation immediately from the group, and so I know the progress of plan submittal. So this is really great, and I hope your adjustments and changes you're talking about over the next couple of years reflect how well things work with the prefab structures program. And in addition, if there's any way you could coordinate the same thing you do with the state of Washington, that would be great, because I know they've been working on a process for at least 7 years, and our company was going to be a pilot program for them, but they never really got things off the ground. And if there's an interstate or additional support you can do to help each other, that would be great. And for the current time, I applaud Oregon's BCD in the way their electronic process works. And that's really what I had to say. And support your efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Wall, appreciate the kind words and support of the efforts here at the state. And I can't speak for building codes staff, but I'm sure if there's an opportunity for them to share knowledge with other states about how we do things, I'm sure they would be willing to do that. So thank you again for your comments. Appreciate that, and appreciate it. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this point, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Appreciate your time being here today. I'm glad it was a quick meeting for you, and enjoy the rest of the day. I will adjourn the meeting at 10:05 a.m.